Today, we're going to be talking about one of the best epic champions inside the game, and that is going to be Signy of High... I'm just kidding. I can't even do it. This champion is terrible. We're going in to the Sylvan Watchers, and we are talking about Mistrider Daithi. This is hands down one of the best epic champions that have been introduced into the game in quite some time. And when you look at the Sylvan Watchers, they have some absolutely incredible champions inside this faction. Of course, they have Creodin, who's fantastic for Fire Knight Hard. They have Ruella, who's one of the best debuffers in the entire game, especially at a epic level. They have Nia, who's used in so many pieces of content. And even some of their rare champions, excuse me, are absolutely fantastic. So it's no surprise that Daithi would be one of the strongest. Now, what does he do? What is his kit? Well, let's go ahead and let's take a look at it. So he's going to have an A1 here, which is going to be Briar Arrows, which is going to be an attack one enemy. Has a 60% chance of removing one, one random buff from the target. Also has a 20% chance of granting this champion an extra turn. This is absolutely sensational. He's going to have a 3.8 times attack multiplier on this skill, which is fairly strong for an A1, certainly when you have an effect like that accompanying it. And he does have very decent base attack at 1376 as well. So he's almost on par with some of the lower tier legendaries that we would see these days, which is absolutely fantastic. And he does also bring 97 speed to the party as well. And he does have 60% crit damage, which, if I'm not mistaken, that is a little bit higher than the average champion. So he actually has a bit of a leg up there as well. Now, his A2 is going to be Squall of Shafts, which attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of placing the big version of decreased defense, grants an extra turn if the decreased defense is placed on all enemies by this skill. Another absolutely fantastic skill. This particular one has a 3.9 times attack multiplier, so it's not incredibly strong, but it is still an AoE defense break, and this guy can do some very, very decent damage. Now, so far, you've noticed that there is a extra chance mechanic inside his kit. Well, that does continue with the A3. Hunt the Mists places a increase attack and increase accuracy on this champion for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, then grants an extra turn. This guy is absolutely sensational. And not only that, he also brings in an aura of accuracy in all battles by 40, which is one of the most useful auras that you can have, right? Especially as you progress throughout the game. Having that accuracy bump, if you think about it, that is essentially the equivalent to progressing 4 levels in any of the classic dungeons, because you need roughly 10 accuracy per level of the dungeon. So let's say, stage 20, if you're trying to beat that and you have, maybe 160 accuracy on some of your champions, this guy is going to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? You now have that 200 accuracy that you need, which is pretty fantastic. And not only that, he does also bring the increased attack and increase accuracy for himself, so he doesn't need anyone else to do that. You can save a lot of stats by having him built out with a little bit less accuracy and a little bit more damage, which is fantastic. Now, as for another few things about this champion, for the blessing, I do currently have him built inside Phantom Touch. This is certainly not going to be the world's strongest Mistrider Daithi, that is for sure. He is only 1-star awakened, and he's only a +1, so if you have him built out with a little bit more stats, you'll certainly get a bit more use out of him. If you do have him 5 or especially 6-star awakened, I would actually recommend running him with Rend Cruelty, so that on his AoEs and his extra turns, he's essentially going to go ahead and decrease their defense a little bit more. Even 1-star awakening, he's not going to be terrible inside this blessing, but of course you'll get so much more benefit out of it as the higher awakenings come into play. And of course, as always, Nature's Wrath is one of my favorite blessings to run a champion inside of, especially if they place a lot of debuffs like this guy does. So those are the kind of blessings you'd want to use. In terms of masteries, I did come down to kind of just the regular damage dealing masteries that you would expect to see. So we do come down to War Master because he is a single hitter on every single skill. And I'm going to, of course, have Master Hexer as well. So he's going to go ahead and have a chance to extend any sort of debuffs that he's placing. And considering how many debuffs he places, which is mainly just to decrease defense, getting that extended is going to be quite nice, especially considering it is on a 4-turn cooldown. Now, as always, I did go ahead and bring my son Wukong gear over to him for the showcase. I like to do this just so it kind of keeps things even across the champions, so that if you watch one of my guides on, let's just say, I can't even think of a damage dealer right now. If you watch a guide on Genbo, right? I don't even have a guide out on him yet. That's one for the list that needs to be done, right? And then if you come and watch my guide on Daithi, I don't want it to be an extreme damage difference, mainly just based off of that gear. So this is kind of how it's looking. As I always say, this is in no way min-maxed at all, so you can definitely get some better builds on your champion, especially if you have a 6-star chest plate that has that extra 10% attack on there, right? So don't feel like this is an endgame build or anything like that. I am just a lowly late game player myself. These are the total stats. We're going to be showcasing him inside Dragon's Lair, so he's going to have about 43k HP, 264 on the speed, 4600 attack, which is still pretty decent, 102 crit rate, 248 crit damage, and 266 on the accuracy. This guy does have a decent amount of accuracy there, of course, and we do have him built out inside the lethal, as well as one piece stone skin, just because I didn't have the ability to put cruel on him and still maintain the stats that I wanted. Again, this comes from my son Wukong, so that's kind of the build I was going for on him. Now that being said, I will show you this real quick. So essentially, I usually run him inside Savage as well as a 2-piece of Cruel, and that's the way I would recommend him if you're strictly just going for damage. However, with this particular set, or this gear set rather, as you can see, I didn't reach the crit rate thresholds because I don't necessarily depend on him to be my damage dealer. So just having him crit rate here and there is quite nice. And I will say that I do use this champion significantly. So some of the champions I do reviews on, it's kind of more just a showcase for you guys if you're thinking about how to build them or those sorts of things. But let me assure you that this champion I am using almost daily depending on where I'm farming. So you can certainly get use out of him inside the Doom Tower. You'll get a lot of use out of them inside City of Centranos, and you're certainly going to get use out of them inside Faction Wars. Now, not only that, he has popped up in a few faction-specific tournaments that we've been able to partake in, and then, of course, just any sort of content you're looking to progress, he can certainly help you out. As always, we're going to go ahead and hop into Dragon's Lair here to see what we can do in terms of damage. Now, the one thing with him is, of course, Dragon Stage 20 is a weak affinity for him. He is a Force Affinity champion, so running him against Magic Affinity enemies is not going to be the smartest choice in the book. Because of that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and... Actually, sorry, I've completely lost plot. Running Force against Magic is actually what you want to do. So disregard my ramblings there. I was thinking we'd have to run him on a Void stage, but we are going to be perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and see what he's capable of. It's been a long day, if you couldn't tell, so my brain is kind of shut off in some ways. Now, let's go ahead. Let's buff up with our Arbiter. Let's go ahead and get some increased speed, as well as, all those sorts of good things. Decreased defense and weaken coming in from the Lydia. Now, the thing to keep in mind with this guy is, of course, he can bring his own increased attack, so you don't need the Arbiter to come in for that. And he does bring his own increased accuracy as well. So now he's going to be pushing well over 300 to 400 accuracy, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's go ahead and hit his AoE here and see what he's capable of. Boom! This is a support champion that's placing a defense break, and he just did like 94k on some of these champions and almost one-shot them himself with certainly gear that is not the absolute best, right? So that is actually pretty fantastic. If we had a Hex out there or something like that, this guy would certainly have killed some of these champions. And again, it can't really be overstated that this guy is technically a support champion that just came in and did that much damage. Let's see what the A1 is capable of. Boom! We're going to go ahead and smack for about 78k there on an A1 as well, which is pretty fantastic. If this guy was empowered and if this guy was fully awakened, you would certainly see a lot more damage out of him. So you can really already start to see the use case. We'll go ahead. We'll load up some Classic Arena here and see if there's some teams that we can't take out. Running him inside any sort of a Classic speed composition is definitely going to be the way to go, in my opinion. You're not really going to get too much use out of him, excuse me, in like a Go Second team or something like that. And that's not necessarily because he's a bad champion. That's more specifically because he is an epic attack-based damage dealer at that, so he's not going to have much survivability. You could try to do some weird stuff and pair him with like a Freya or something like that, but realistically, if you were able to, excuse me, if you're able to grind and get Freya, you probably have better champions available anyway. Now, let's go ahead and hope we get the lockout on the Armands here. That'd be quite nice. We do, which is absolutely fantastic. We're going to come in with that decreased defense. Now, we are going to go ahead and get the extra turn from him just so we have the increased accuracy as well. Let's go ahead and smack in here and see what we're capable of. Boom! We do a lot of damage to the enemy team considering that Pythion is a traditionally tanky champion, right? So that's absolutely fantastic. Of course, we do get taken out there by counterattacks and whatnot, so that is a bit of a shame, but you can really see how good this guy is. And keep in mind, I'm in Gold 5 facing some of the best champions in the game currently, right? So 14,000 player power. This guy's at about the same level as me in terms of the gear thresholds and whatnot, and facing some of the best champions, right? So being able to do that level of damage to them is pretty fantastic. Let's hope we're faster. than this team here, just so we can kind of do a cool showcase. For my damage dealers, we're not faster, unfortunately. For my damage dealers, I have really started to like doing showcases inside the arena because so much content these days is essentially mandatory participation. So that would be obviously Classic Arena. We have events for every single fusion. And then, of course, Live Arena, we do have these crests, which you need to upgrade bonuses inside your Great Hall. And then you do also have these chests, which are really one of the only ways that you can consistently farm the Primal Quartz for your Primal Shards. And of course, everybody wants a mythical champion. Why wouldn't you? So you're going to be farming for that most likely. Now, I still haven't quite kicked this damn pesky cough, rather. So there's going to be a bit of coughing throughout the video. I hope nobody's too triggered by that. If you are, well, that's too bad. You're just going to have to deal with it, I suppose. That being said, though, thank you for watching the video. And as I mentioned in the last couple videos as well, I am trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you can find it in your heart to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, make sure to do so. We're already almost at 1,700, which is absolutely awesome. Thank you guys all so much for the support on the channel. We see some pretty crazy things there, like 90k plus hits coming in on the Sun Wukong. And of course, that wasn't a particularly tanky team, but you know, these are the teams that you yourself can face inside the Classic Arena, right? So it's not like I'm going through here and just cherry picking certain champions or something like that. The Hefrak here is almost certainly going to be inside Stone Skin, so even if we go first, we're probably not really going to be able to do much. His Arbiter is faster, and the Armands cuts in as well. It's really challenging to do these showcases when the speed on my Arbiter just sucks in today's meta, apparently, you know? It's not the best. And in that being said as well, I did lose my speed increasing blessing that I would usually have from my Sun Wukong as well. I have the 5-star intimidating presence on him. We don't have any sort of a speed blessing on this team though, so I'm wondering if I do something like this if we can't beat them, because then I will have that intimidating presence, which strengthens our aura quite a bit and then decreases their aura, of course. And even with that, they are still faster, which is absolutely insane to me. We'll go ahead and try to push back some turn meter there. This is insane, yeah. I need to do some real farming for speed gear or something, because this is pretty crazy. We're going to go ahead and metamorph here and do a reset and hope that Daithi's able to cut in. Is he faster than their Georgid? I doubt it. He's dead anyways. Doesn't really matter. Again, it's hard to do these showcases when my speed is so slow. We certainly could try to take him, like I mentioned, on a go second team or whatnot, but I don't think that's going to be the most useful. It's not how most players are going to end up using him. If we're talking about a tanky team, though, something like this is pretty much the epitome of tanky. So we're going to go ahead and just see what kind of damage he can do against these champions. And then I think that'll probably do it for the review there. They're all pretty slow as well, which I'm certainly not complaining about. Now this is annoying because we have a bunch of revivers, and then even if we kill those revivers, Marichka's just going to bring them back as well. So that increased accuracy is certainly going to help. Let's go ahead and see what he's capable of. Boom! We do get reaction procs pretty much across the board, but he is able to take out the Sifi there. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here and say that if you have 3 Sifis, all 3-star awakening or higher, one of them fully 6-starred and a +2 empowerment, as well as a Marichka, you probably have some decent gear on your team. So considering that he was able to do that level of damage to that champion, even with that in mind, that is pretty insane. Like, he's able to do some decent stuff. And again, he doesn't have crazy good multipliers on his A2, right? So on his AoE, yet he was still able to come in. You've seen the resistance procs coming in from somebody like my Eostrid, who has like 300 accuracy or something like that, right? But he was still able to land that decreased defense on all the Sifis because he had the increased accuracy. So this guy is absolutely fantastic. If you have him, I would highly recommend building him out. He's going to help to progress your account, especially inside faction wars and things like that, right? We don't do incredible amounts of damage, but again, if you're running inside a Classic Arena and you just have him as your go second or go third champion, basically just a debuffer that can come in and then set up your nuker, right? He's going to help out so much in that role. That being said, thank you guys all so much for watching the video, and as always, I'll see you next time.